Hello everyone, I'm Mrs. Green. I'm so excited to be back with you again. For this project today, we are going to be making a sculpture, and you remember a sculpture has height, width, depth. You can walk all the way around it, so it needs to be interesting from every angle. And this sculpture is inspired by an artist named Alexander Calder. Alexander Calder actually started out as an engineer, and then he became an artist. And when he started becoming an artist, he would make these wire sculptures, and then he also would make wire sculpture circuses that actually moved. So those are really cool. And then he invented the mobile. So if you ever had a mobile hanging over a crib, or you just have one in your house hanging from a string and it moves around, things hanging off of it, that's an Alexander Calder invention. So mobiles move, right? They're what we call a kinetic sculpture. They move. The one we're going to be looking at today is what we call a stabile. And a stabile is stable. It doesn't move. It's just a freestanding sculpture. And he made his out of metal, and they are huge. They're monumental. They're like sizes of buildings. We used to actually have one in Balboa Park at the art museum. Perhaps you saw it in one time. It was black. It was sitting by the entrance. And if you look at him, and if you want to see more of his work, and you should check them out, you can go to the website below. You can learn more about him as well. Maybe see some of his kinetic sculptures. And sometimes he made the mobile on the stabile, so he combined the two of them. But for today's purposes, we're just going to make the stabile. And the stabile is stable, and we're making ours out of paper. So I'm going to show you how that's done. But before I do, he was also a painter, and he painted what he called spirals. He did these spiral paintings, and so I got inspired by his spiral paintings, and I added them to my stabile as an inspiration. So you have two parts of Calder's work in one piece. And that was really handy because I just had white cardstock, which is what you're going to need. Let's talk about some supplies. And you want to make sure your stabile is stable. It doesn't move. Oh, and you can see it from different angles. You know, so I can pick it up. I can look at it from different sides. Maybe you like it from the side, but make sure you want to make it so that it's pleasing from every angle. So I'm going to put my finished one over here for a second, and we'll talk to you about some supplies. So if you have just a white sheet of cardstock or a colored cardstock, that's great. If you don't happen to have cardstock, I bet you sometimes get in the mail these junk mail things that are about that same weight. They're really stiff, they're hard. You can use those as well. You can actually use a combination of the two. You'll also notice, and if you go and look at his work, you'll see this, that he is using both geometric and freeform shapes in his sculptures. So it's a really good idea to combine the two. It's really exciting. If you want to have a white piece of paper and you want to embellish it, I think that's a great idea. So what you can do is cut out the shapes and then draw on them. And you can make them colorful. That's really up to you. You can just leave it plain. Alexander Calder usually just made his sculptures red, black, kind of basic colors like that. So let me show you how you're going to construct one of these. So you've got your supplies, and you have your either your junk mail or your cardstock, and we're going to start cutting shapes out. And here's the first trick: don't cut out teeny tiny shapes. Teeny tiny shapes are super hard, and and make a little teeny tiny sculpture it's more complicated. You can try it after you're done if you'd like with the scraps, but I promise you it's better if you go bigger. It's much easier. You notice I don't have little teeny tinies. I do have them of various sizes though, so that's super important. You want to make your shapes in different sizes, but no teeny tinies. And so I'm going to start by cutting out my shapes. And I want a combination of freeform and geometric shapes. And we got to play with those before with Matisse, so you should be familiar with making those freeform shapes by now. If I'm going to do a triangle, you notice that I have the right angle here of my paper, if I just cut that corner off, you'll get a triangle. If you want a square, you can just cut, you can also use that corner by just cutting across and then down. So 2 cuts and you have a rectangle or a square. This is, I think, the smallest you probably want to go with your shapes. Don't go any smaller than this, please. I promise you'll make your life easier. And then if I want a triangle, once again, I'm going to make, because this one's small, I'm going to make a bigger triangle just by cutting off the corner, just like that. It's super easy to make a triangle that way. And I'm going to cut some out of my junk mail now too. So maybe this one, because it's got a little red in it, I'm going to cut this one into a freeform shape. So just take your scissors, see where they take you, move it around. Remember, the hand that's holding the paper does all the work. I'm going to round this one off a little bit. So here I have a nice freeform shape. And I can actually make another one out of this one because I kind of like what happened down here. So I'm just going to cut this off, and now I have another freeform shape. And you want about 6. So your goal is to get about 6 shapes. If you want more, go for it. And then I'm going to make a circle because I want them all to be just pure white. I kind of like the idea of using my junk mail. So I'm going to make an oval out of this one, or a circle. We'll see what it comes out to be. You see I'm just doing cut, turn, cut, turn, cut, turn, like that. So I have 3 geometric, and I have 2 freeform right now, so I want another freeform shape. So maybe I'll make my other freeform shape out of here. And again, don't go too small. Have fun, see where the scissors take you. You can always modify it too, but remember, whatever shape you come up with, that's fabulous. Okay, so now I have my 6 shapes. I'm going to move these guys out of the way. So now we want to build our sculpture. And here's what we want. First of all, one piece of paper doesn't really stand up very well on its own, does it? No. So you need to find 2 pieces that you're going to use for your base. And that's going to be what you're going to build your sculpture on. So you want to create your base first. And you know, there's going to be a little trial and error. Sometimes it's going to fall. The idea is for it to be freeform, to be freestanding, and you should be able to like pick it up and not have it fall apart on you. Right? So it's nice and sturdy. Okay. And here's the trick to doing that. I'm going to figure out where I want to put these. And you know, you want points that are balancing, right? You want to make sure that it's balanced. And so it'll stand up on its own. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut, once I decide where I'm going to put them, I'm going to cut a slit into both pieces. And here's the other trick. You don't want a super long strip. That's going to make it very weak. You also don't want a teeny tiny one because that's also going to make it weak. So you kind of have to get just right. And I find that like my knuckle from here to here is about right. If you have small fingers, maybe your thumb, but it just needs to be, yeah, about my knuckle length or maybe a little less. I'm gonna say if you want to measure, if you really like to, it's about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch is ideal. Again, if it's too tiny, it'll fall apart. If it's too big, it'll fall apart. So it's a little tricky to make it just right. Now, I want to make a slit on both pieces. So I decided I wanted this to attach here. And I'm going to make a slit in this one as well. And remember, keep it around that 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch size. And then I'm going to just take them, and this takes 2 hands, it takes practice, and you need to make sure that you slide them together all the way until the edges touch, the ends touch. And sometimes you need to like kind of get your fingers in there and twist it a little bit if it's kind of getting a little floppy still. And now you see I have a nice sturdy connection between these 2. And I have a base. Now if I hadn't put a slit on both of them, and I put this on there, it falls apart. See how it's kind of going floppy? That's why it's super important that you put it in both pieces. That slit needs to be in both pieces. So let me slide this one back together again for you. And now I found my base. This feels a little stable. So now I want to think about how I want to build on top of that base. And this is something you have to really start thinking about. We were talking about visual balance, so making sure that things were in our compositions where it was aesthetically pleasing, it moved your eye around. We've talked about that. Now you got to make sure that balance, physical balance now. So if you put something too heavy on one side, your sculpture is going to collapse. So you need to think about how you're going to be balancing those elements. And I'm thinking this one might be good here, so let's give it a try. And again, I'm going to just cut a slit about that 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Super important that you do it on both pieces. Okay, I'm going to flip it around that way so you can see what that side looks like. Okay, I have my slits and now I'm sliding them together. Make sure that the bottoms touch. Okay, that's pretty stable. That's kind of really, I have these heavy pieces on the bottom. If I put the heavy pieces on the top, do you think they're going to hold? It depends on what kind of base you build. It might, but most likely it won't. Okay, so where do I want to put my triangle? So, you know, you just gotta eye it around. Okay, I think I like it there. I'm gonna put it on top of that guy. And I can put it, maybe I want to put it upside down. Yeah, so I'm gonna put it on this side. And you know, if it falls, if you're, if it doesn't work the first time, and you found out, oh, that balance wasn't right, just try it again. Let it fall apart. It's okay. You can just pick it up and redo it. You have to be patient. Okay, so I have my piece here. I like my upside down triangle now. Okay, and if it collapses, it collapses. And again, I can do a little test. See, I can pick it up by that triangle. And you see how it holds together really nicely? All right, so let me see, where do I want to put my third? Now, do you think if I put my circle here, it would hold? No, that feels like that's gonna fall over, right? That's too heavy for that side. But can I put it on top of this square? Let's try. Kind of more of a rectangle than a square. Okay, a little bit there, and then I'm gonna pick it up. And you notice I'm cutting the slits as I'm creating them. Don't just go ahead and start just cutting random slits because they might not be where you want them to be. And then you just have all these little slits in your piece. That's no fun. Okay, that's good. So I have one more piece. Do you think I can hang it here? Do you think that'll hold? Let's give it a try. Seems a little precarious, but I'm going to give it a whirl. Okay, so that goes there. So you know that I'm getting in both pieces. And then you got to find that slit again. Okay, there it is. And I'm going to slide it. And remember, I'm sliding it all the way down. You got to find it. And this really is a two-hand. You need both of your hands, and you need to put them in there nice and solid. No, that was too heavy. See, that's why you need to think about physical balance as well as visual balance, because it needs to have both. It needs to be both aesthetically pleasing to the eye, but also be able to stand on its own without collapsing. So I put that there. That was too much weight for that side. So what if I put it more center? I think that might be a little better, right? So now I'm going to cut my little slit. I'm going to cut a slit on this side, and I'm sliding them together, and it stayed! Yay! So that's just, you know, you just gotta play with it. Be patient. If you want to add more to this at this point, you can cut out some more shapes and keep adding on to it. You can make it as big as you want. The whole family can get involved too. That's kind of fun. And I can, you know, because I did the two slits, I can turn this thing upside down even and see how it holds. And I can go like that. That means I have a nice strong connection. And I can look at it from all these different angles. So if I find that, oh, you know what, I think it needs more on this side because that's not as pleasing, or if I'm looking at it from this side, I don't like that as much, you can totally add more to it. You just don't need to sit here and watch me do that. Have fun with it. And the other fun thing about this is once you're done, you can take it apart like this, and you can make a whole different one. Like maybe I'm going to do it a completely different way. Maybe I want to put this piece on here. So that one was pretty horizontal. Maybe you can try going more vertical, You can just keep playing with it and making new versions. Sometimes when you put them on, they're going to do this. You just got to get your fingers in there and twist it so it's right where you want it to be. So you're going to need to fiddle with your pieces every now and then. But yeah, it's fun. You can play with different configurations. Maybe if I put these two here, and you can just recreate it. So it can make all kinds of different versions of the same piece. You can just keep recreating your sculpture over and over again. And that's kind of fun to reimagine it. We got our circle and our square together. And so in this case, I can add another slit, right? Okay, so have fun. Use your junk mail. Use some cardstock if you have it. But have fun making your sculptures and playing around with them and adding on. And again, like I said, if you really want to try out doing a teeny tiny, you can cut up your scraps and see what you can make from that. All right, now it's time for you to pause your video and you go ahead and make your own Alexander Calder stabilo. And when you're done with it, come back and see me. All right, well, I hope you had a great time making your Alexander Calder sculptures. And I hope you had a chance to go check out his work and look at his stabiles as well. And you notice I added another piece, so that was fun. So I thought, you know what, it needed a little more balance. So once you go and find somebody in your household or write down, was it difficult to get your sculpture to stand on its own? How many times did it take? What was the difference between your visual balance and your physical balance? How did that work together? And go ahead and make some more of these. They're so much fun to do. And you can take them apart and put them back together again. So keep playing with it. Happy art making, stay safe, and I will see you next time.